my name is Harper Lane. I'm 32 years old, and today should feel like the celebration of a lifetime. I'm standing in the grand entryway of my new home, a beautifully restored craftsman-style house just outside Seattle, valued at nearly $960,000. Hardwood floors gleam beneath my heels, and the smell of fresh paint still lingers in the air. The marble countertops, the custom lighting, the wraparound porch, it's all mine. Every inch was earned through sleepless nights, silent sacrifice, and relentless work. Today is my housewarming party. There are flowers on the table, soft music playing, and a steady hum of conversation from friends and colleagues downstairs. But my stomach knots the moment the door opens and I see them, my mother, Victoria, and my older sister, Elise. They smile politely as they step inside, but something in their expressions makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I've seen that look before. The last time was 14 years ago, on the night everything changed. Before I tell you what happened at my party today, before I show you how I handled the most outrageous betrayal I've ever experienced, I need to take you back to the night of my 18th birthday. The night I was given a choice: surrender my future or walk away from my family forever. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Minneapolis. From the outside, our family looked picture perfect. My father, Richard, worked in corporate finance. My mother, Victoria, managed a boutique downtown. Elise, my older sister, was the golden child, graceful, outgoing, always praised for something. And me, I was the quiet one, always buried in a book or tinkering with computers in the basement. When I was 12, my parents divorced. There wasn't a big fight. No plates thrown or voices raised, just a quiet announcement at the dinner table that Dad was moving out. Elise, who was 15 then, barely reacted. I remember being confused more than anything else. The family I knew was dissolving, and no one seemed to think it was a big deal. After the divorce, Dad moved to Chicago for work and eventually started a new family. I didn't hear from him much after that. He'd send birthday cards with a check, call a few times a year. But the connection faded, and Mom made sure of that. She never told me when he called. Sometimes she'd forget to give me his letters. Eventually, the silence just became normal. Elise, meanwhile, met and married her college sweetheart, Eric, a young investment banker from a wealthy family. Their wedding was extravagant. Mom spent nearly $50,000 on it, despite our limited means. A daughter only gets married once, she said. I was 19 then, working 2 jobs while attending community college, barely scraping by. Still, I chipped in for the bridesmaid dress, smiling for photos like everything was fine. Within a year, Elise had her first child, Jacob. Then came Emma, and finally Ethan. 3 kids in 6 years. Each time, Mom fell deeper into Elise's world. She doted on the grandkids, cooked for them, helped pay for their schools, and even their nanny at one point. And Elise, she lived like someone on a reality show. Their house was enormous, their vacations lavish, and their car leases never-ending. But behind the scenes, their finances were falling apart. Eric had a high income, but their spending outpaced it. Whenever things got tight, Mom stepped in to help, always at my expense. "You don't have kids," she'd say when I asked for help with textbooks. "You can use the library, can't you?" I never argued. I just worked harder. I'd gotten partial scholarships for my computer science degree, but the rest I had to cover on my own. Mornings as a barista, afternoons tutoring, and weekends doing data entry. I averaged 4 hours of sleep a night. There was no safety net, no backup plan, just me and my stubborn determination. And through it all, Elise posted family photos and smiling vacation selfies, while I tried to stay awake long enough to study for my finals. We may have shared a childhood, but our lives couldn't have been more different. My 18th birthday landed on a Tuesday. I remember because I had carefully rearranged my schedule to take the evening off, a rare luxury in my world. I didn't expect a party or gifts. Elise had just announced her 3rd pregnancy, and all attention had shifted once again to her growing family. Still, I hoped for something. A card, a slice of cake, maybe even a small dinner together. When I walked in that evening after my tutoring job, the lights were on in the kitchen. I found Mom and Elise sitting at the table, surrounded by spreadsheets and paperwork. They barely looked up. "There's leftover lasagna in the fridge if you're hungry," Mom said, eyes fixed on a stack of documents. I heated a plate and joined them. "What are you working on?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Figuring out some financial options," Mom replied. "Elise and Eric need a bigger house with the 3rd baby on the way." I nodded. I was used to these conversations, But then I saw something that froze me in place: my college acceptance letters, financial aid documents, and scholarship forms spread across the table. "Why do you have my college paperwork?" I asked. Elise sighed dramatically. We might as well tell her. Mom looked up, her face wearing that tight, strained look I'd seen too many times. The one that always came before bad news disguised as duty. "Harper, we need to talk about your college plans," she said. With Elise expecting again, they really need to move into a 4-bedroom home. Eric's bonus wasn't as large as they hoped this year, and they're coming up short. I sat there, silent, feeling a pit open in my stomach. "We need to use your college fund," Mom said bluntly. "You already have scholarships and community college is perfectly respectable. You can always transfer later when things settle down." My mouth went dry. That money was from Dad, for my education. "Don't be selfish, Harper," Elise cut in. "We're talking about a home for my children. Where are they supposed to sleep?" "In a closet." I blinked. I've worked hard. I've kept a 4.0 GPA while working 3 jobs. Scholarships don't cover everything. "Welcome to the real world," Elise snapped. "Eric and I have a mortgage. That's life." Mom added, "Or you could just stay home and attend community college. It's more economical." I felt something crack inside me. Years of being second, of being quiet, of swallowing my own needs. "No," I said quietly but firmly. Mom blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no. That money is mine. It was for college, not for Elise's house. Mom's face hardened. "This isn't a negotiation. You can accept it or pack your bags and figure things out on your own. You're 18 now, after all." I stood slowly. Elise looked smug, like she had already won. But this time, I didn't back down. "I'll pack my bags," I said. And that night, I walked out with nothing but a suitcase, a laptop, and a fragile sliver of freedom. I slept in my car that night. February in Minnesota is brutal, and my only blanket was my barista uniform. I curled up in the back seat of my 2002 Honda Civic and stared at the ceiling, wondering what I had just done. No one called. No one came after me. For the next 2 weeks, I kept my routine exactly the same. Morning shifts at the cafe, afternoons tutoring, weekends behind a desk doing data entry. I showered at the local gym thanks to a discounted student membership and pretended everything was normal. No one knew I was sleeping in a parking lot. On the 15th day, I dozed off in the campus library. That's where Professor Diane Spencer found me, head down on a keyboard. She didn't ask many questions, just looked at me with kind, steady eyes and said, "You're coming home with me." She gave me her guest room, no strings attached. "Until you figure things out," she said. And with that, the tide began to turn. Professor Spencer became more than a teacher. She was my mentor, my advocate, and the first adult who believed in me without conditions. She helped me apply for emergency grants, pushed through extra scholarships, and wrote a recommendation letter that landed me a competitive internship my junior year. I ended up at a small state university, not my dream school, but one with a strong computer science program. While other students joined clubs and partied, I waited tables, fixed printers at the IT help desk, and coded freelance websites until 3 a.m. My social life didn't exist. My GPA never slipped. That's where I met Sophie Tran. Sophie was all chaos and creativity, late to class, full of ideas, never met a deadline she didn't argue with. But she was brilliant. I handled back-end systems and logic. She had a gift for UX and design. By our junior year, we were inseparable. We began building a prototype for an app we called Clarity, a financial tool aimed at people like us, broke, overlooked, but determined. Most budgeting apps assumed you already had savings. We wanted to help people who lived paycheck to paycheck. We pitched the idea to anyone who'd listen. Most investors dismissed us. "College kids don't care about finance," they said. "Come back when you've got real experience." We kept going. Then we won a campus innovation grant. Not much, just $5,000, but enough to hire a marketing student and push the app live. Our big break came 6 months later when a popular financial influencer featured Clarity on her channel. Overnight, our downloads tripled, then tripled again. By the time we graduated, Clarity had 100,000 active users. We turned down full-time job offers and moved into a crumbling 1-bedroom apartment with roaches and questionable plumbing. Every dime went into development. After 2 years, we hit 1 million users. And 5 years after launch, Clarity was acquired by one of the largest fintech companies in the country. The deal made Sophie and me multimillionaires before the age of 30. When the wire transfer cleared, I didn't scream. I didn't celebrate. I just sat on the floor of our tiny apartment and cried, not because I was rich, because for the first time I was safe. With financial security finally mine, I decided it was time to create a home, a real one. Not just a place to sleep, but something stable, something beautiful. After months of searching, I found it, a craftsman-style house tucked in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood just outside Seattle. 4 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, sunlight in every room. The price tag $960,000 didn't scare me. I paid in cash. As I walked through the finished renovations, polished wood under my feet, and the scent of new paint still in the air, I thought back to what my college fund was taken for, a down payment on a house for a lease. And now I owned a house worth 3 times that, paid for entirely by my own grit. When I decided to host a housewarming party, I debated whether to invite my family. Stephanie, my best friend and Clarity co-founder, warned me. "You sure that's a good idea?" she asked. "Some ghosts don't deserve a seat at the table." But I felt ready. I wanted to see them, to look them in the eye, not with bitterness, but strength. So I sent out invitations to friends, colleagues, my professors, my financial advisor, and yes, to my father, Victoria, and Elise. My father responded immediately with a kind RSVP and offered to bring a bottle of wine. Elise replied tersely, "Looking forward to seeing how you're doing." Mom called, surprised but accepted. The day of the party, the sun was out and the house glowed with life. Guests mingled, champagne flowed, and every room was filled with laughter and warmth. Professor Spencer arrived with her husband, squeezing my hand and whispering, "I'm proud of you." Around 4:30, the doorbell rang again. I opened it to find my mother and Elise standing on the porch, along with Eric and their 3 children. Elise was dressed impeccably, as always, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. Victoria, still elegant, stood beside her, expression unreadable. "Harper," my mother said carefully, "thank you for inviting us." "Welcome," I replied, stepping aside. "Please come in." The children wandered off toward the game room, and Elise's eyes swept over the entryway, the staircase, the open-plan kitchen beyond. "Beautiful," she said, almost begrudgingly. "6 months of renovations," I replied. As we walked through the house, I saw her expression begin to shift, eyes lingering on closet space, her fingers brushing over countertop edges. "This is a perfect family home," she commented. "Plenty of space, great school district." And then, as we reached the dining room, Elise turned to me with a bright smile and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Harper, seeing this house today made me realize something. This is exactly the kind of home my kids need." I froze. The room went silent. "What Elise means," Mom interjected smoothly, "is we're so proud of what you've built. And it's clear you've created a space perfect for family." But Elise shook her head and pressed on. "No, I mean exactly what I said. You live alone, you don't need all this space, and we need a home. So what do you say?" It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a request. It was an expectation. Again, the room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. I could see my guests frozen mid-sip, mid-conversation. Even Professor Spencer's brows drew together in a look I hadn't seen since she caught a student cheating in senior year. I took a slow breath and smiled genuinely. Not the kind of smile you use to hide discomfort, but the one that comes when you know, without a doubt, that the old version of yourself is gone. I wasn't 18 anymore. I wasn't cold or afraid or apologizing for breathing. "Elise," I said calmly, "you already have a house. The one Dad bought for you with the money meant for my education." Her smile wavered. "That was years ago. And this," I gestured around the room, "is what I built instead." Victoria stepped in, tone too sweet. "Honey, don't make this into something bigger than it needs to be. We're just saying family looks out for each other. You don't even have children. You don't need 4 bedrooms. And you don't need to decide what I do with my life or my property." Eric tried to laugh it off, but his eyes betrayed discomfort. "We just thought maybe if the kids could stay here during the week." "You all made a choice," I said, voice even, 14 years ago, "and I made mine. I didn't ask for help, and I didn't ask to be included. I built this on my own." Elise's face reddened. "We're family, Harper. You're seriously going to say no to your niece and nephews? To your own sister?" "Yes," I said, "I am." It was the first time I had ever said no to her without guilt, without flinching, and it felt quiet, like standing in the center of a storm, untouched. My father, who had remained silent all this time, finally spoke up. "She's right," he said, voice gravelly. "This is her home. You don't get to make demands." Victoria turned sharply to him. "Oh, now you speak?" He didn't answer. Just looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. "I should have stood up for you sooner." I nodded. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward. There was no yelling, no dramatic exit. Elise scoffed and turned toward the door, muttering something about selfishness and ungratefulness. Victoria followed, her face tight. Eric apologized under his breath as he herded the kids out. My father lingered. "If you ever want to talk," he said quietly, "I'd like to try." I didn't promise anything, just gave him a polite nod. After they left, I walked back into the dining room, guests still silent in the wake of what just happened. Then Stephanie clapped once, loud and slow, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you shut down entitled family with style. Laughter broke the tension and conversation resumed, but something in me had shifted. I had faced the ghosts. And this time I didn't run. I stood still, I stood tall. And I stayed home. That night, after the last glass was washed and the last guest had left, I stood alone in the center of my kitchen. The silence was different now, not empty, not heavy, just mine. I thought back to the girl who stood on a driveway 14 years ago, backpack at her feet, watching her family turn their backs. I thought about the dorm room I moved into with nothing but a suitcase and a half-paid tuition bill. About the jobs I juggled, the scholarships I applied for, the nights I spent studying while others partied. They thought they took everything from me when they took that college fund. What they gave me instead was the freedom to owe them nothing. Because when you build without a safety net, you learn to balance with precision. When no one offers a hand, your hands get stronger. And when the people who should love you use guilt as currency, you learn the real value of peace. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't need to shame them. All I did was tell the truth and live it. In the days that followed, Elise sent a few texts, half apologies, thinly veiled jabs, but I didn't answer. Victoria left a voicemail reminding me of what family is about. I didn't return the call. My father sent a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual letter. Handwritten. Apologizing for his silence, owning the choices he made, not asking for anything, just saying sorry. I read it 3 times, then put it in a drawer. Forgiveness is a door I'll open when I'm ready. Not because someone else knocks, but because I choose to turn the handle. Meanwhile, life moves forward. Stephanie and I opened a second location for clarity. We hired a team. We're mentoring other women who've been told they're too much, too emotional, too loud, too ambitious. And as for the house, it's not just a house. It's a statement. A quiet one, made with wood and light and space. A reminder that I didn't just survive what they did. I grew from it. Every woman I know has a story like mine, in one shape or another. A moment when the people they loved demanded too much. When silence was expected. When boundaries were seen as betrayal. But here's the truth they never say out loud: walking away doesn't make you cruel. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. Choosing yourself isn't abandoning others, it's honoring the life you're still building. If this story resonates with you, you're not alone. You're not too much. You're enough. And if you're standing on the edge of a decision that feels terrifying but true, take one step, then another. And don't look back. Because sometimes the most powerful kind of revenge is not noise or fire. It's peace. It's joy. It's the quiet sound of a door closing behind you and the stronger one opening ahead. This was my story. I hope it gives you strength for yours.